Hi guys, and welcome back to JavaScript Playground. In today's video, we will talk about events, event listeners, and event handlers. So let's start with what is an event. When some action happens in the web page, that action is called event. These are some examples of events. The user clicking the mouse over a certain element, or the user hovering the cursor over a certain element, the user pressing a key on the keyboard, the user resizing or closing the browser window, a web page finishing loading, or a form being submitted, or a video being played or paused or finishing play. These are all examples of events. You can make your web page react to these events. Say, for example, when someone clicks on a button, show a pop-up, or when someone clicks the escape button, hide all the pop-ups, or when video is finished playing, then play the next video, etc., etc. This reacting to events is called listening to events. And the code that runs on this reaction is called event handler. There are two ways you can handle events. One is using the event handler property, and second is using add event listener method. Let's try both. Say we want to change the background color when someone clicks on this button. So let's give it a try. So I've already created a JavaScript file and it's imported in my HTML file. So before we can add an event handler to our button, first we need to select the button. So let's do that. So variable, say button. So document dot get element by ID. Let's select the ID. Okay, so let's give an ID here quickly. So button click. Let's copy it and paste it here. So now we have access to this button element. So the first method was using the event handler property. So what we can do is selected element, so btn dot, and we can specify the event. Say for click, we have on click, or if you want to listen to hover event, so you could do on mouse move or on mouse over, or if you want to listen to video play, so you can do on play, or if you want to listen to pause, you could do on pause. So all these event properties are available here, and you can simply select these properties by first selecting your element, dot, and the event name. So in our case, we wanted click, so on click. And now what this needs is, it needs a function. So you can either have an anonymous function or you can give a function reference. So first let's try with an anonymous function. So function, so let's print it in the console, or let's try something new. So JavaScript allows us to show alerts, and for that it provides us with a function called alert. So let's use that. And whatever we pass in this function is printed in that alert box. So let's say button clicked. Let's save it. Coming here, when I click on this button, it shows me this alert saying button clicked. All right, so that means our on-click listener is working fine. So when the button is clicked, it calls this function. Now let's try the reference one. So first let's create a function. Let's say on btn click and move this alert box in here. Let's remove this. Now we can use the function reference here. So notice I'm just using the name. I'm not writing name and parenthesis. So if I write name and parenthesis, the function gets triggered automatically because that's what parenthesis means. And in this scenario, we don't want that. What we want is we want to give a reference of this function. So whenever the button is clicked, this function is called. So that's why we just write the function name and we don't add parenthesis, because we don't want this function to run when the code is executed. All right, so let's save it, coming back. And as you can see, now we don't see that alert because the function is not triggered automatically. So when I click here, it again shows me this function. It shows me this alert which says button clicked. All right. So this was one way. The another way is using the add event listener method. So instead of doing on click, let's comment this line. So btn dot add event listener, and we call this method. Now this method accepts two arguments. First, the type of event. So notice here, I'm not writing on click, I'm just writing click. So when you're working with add event listener, you don't use on, you simply write the name of the event, click or hover or mouse over or whatever event you're working with. So in our case, we're working with click. So let's just write click here. And the second one is function. So again, we can use an anonymous function. So let's print an alert here. Say anonymous function called, let's save it. So coming here, when I click, it shows me this alert which says anonymous function called, or we can give it a reference just like we did earlier. So coming back here, let's just pass the reference. So on btn click, remember no parenthesis. Let's save it. Again, when I click here, it shows me another alert which says button clicked. All right. So moving on. Now our function is getting triggered when we click on a button. So let's try changing the background color. So coming here. So instead of this alert, we use our selected element. Now what we want to do is we want to change the background color, and changing background color means we are working with style. So dot style and dot property, which is background color. And to update it, we can simply give a value here, say light coral. Let's save it. Coming here, when I click this button, it changes the background color of the button. So what we want is we want to change the background color of the division. So coming here, so we've given this division a background color. So we've got header and div. So let's use our query selector for this. All right, so let's create a variable, say main div and document dot query selector, because we just want to select one element. And we can pass this CSS selector here. So header space div. Let's save it. Let's try printing it. Coming here, let's inspect. And as you can see, we got the entire div here. All right. Now we have access to the div and we can change its background color. So instead of button, we would use main div here. Let's save it. Now when I click on this button, it changes the background color. All right. Now time for a bonus concept. Now say you want to randomly change background color on every button click. So what we can do is we can use RGB here. So RGB, and this RGB accepts three values. And these three values are numbers between 0 and 255. So what we need is a way to generate these numbers randomly. And for that, we have a function in JavaScript, which is called math.random. So let's give it a try. Let's comment this for now. So math.random, let's save it. So this function, it returns a number between 0 and 1, where 1 is not included. So it will always be less than 1. So let's show this in an alert. Let's run this code. So when I click here, it shows me an alert with number 0.3 something. I try again, it gives me 0.37 something. Try again, it gives me 0.78. So as you can see, on every click, it's giving me a random number. But what we want is a number between 0 and 255. So what we can do here is we can multiply this number by 256, because as we saw, it's always less than 1. So if you multiply it by 256, there's a chance it will go to 255 point something. All right, so let's do that. So coming here, so let's do multiplied by 255. Let's save it. Let's run again. And as you can see, it's giving 14 point something, 71 point something, 132 point something, etc., etc. Now these are all floating numbers or decimal numbers, but what we want is integers. So we can use another function, math.floor, which rounds off the decimal to nearest integer. So let's give that a try. So math.floor, let's wrap this entire value here. Let's save it. So coming here. Now when we click this button, it gives us numbers. So 37, 79, 93, and you see we get these random numbers. So we are good to go. We've got this expression which generates a random number between 0 and 255. All right, now let's create an expression which uses these random values to create an RGB expression. So let's give that a try. Let's move this outside. Let's give it a variable name, say random number, and let's move it in a variable. Now coming to this alert box, and let's create a string. So normally what we would do is 3 comma say 45 comma 155. We want to replace this 3, 45 and 155 by this variable. We cannot just write random number like this because this wouldn't be treated as a variable. Instead, it will be treated as a string. So what we can do here is wrap this starting part in a string, concatenate it with this random number value, and concatenate the rest of the string. So what we've got here is RGB, opening parenthesis, some random number, comma, 45, comma, 155. Similarly, we can do it for this also. Similarly, we can do for this one. And similarly, we can do for the last one. All right, so let's try running the code. So let's click here. And as you can see, we've got RBG 9845 155. If we run it again, we get 176 45 155. So the first value is being generated by this variable. All right, so let's replace this variable by the expression. Replace this 45 by the expression and replace this 155 by the expression. Let's remove that. Let's save it. Let's give it a try again. So when I click here, 156, 66, and 33. When I click again, 154, 56, 197. So it's generating random values. All right, so far so good. Let's select this. Let's uncomment this and paste that expression here. Let's run our code. When I click, it gives us some background color. When we click again, it gives us a different color. And when you keep clicking, it keeps giving you different colors as a background. And that's a wrap for today. I hope this gave you a better understanding of events and event handlers. But if you have any doubts or queries, feel free to drop a comment below or reach out to me on Twitter. I'll add my Twitter handle in the description below. Bye and take care.